Today is part 2 of a 3-part series on Blondme. I am doing a foliage series. In this video, I'm going to be going over low lighting and some extra tricks to take your foliage to the next level. And in the 3rd video, I'm going to be going over my toning secrets. What's up guys, I'm Maureen Moody and I'm the Curious Stylist, and I want to build your confidence in your career through education and science. So if you're curious, stick around.
For her low light formula, I used Schwarzkopf's Vibrance 7-0, 40 grams of that, and 40 grams of the 6 volume developer. So this is one of my favorite tips for foliages that I have found to be very helpful, is when you are doing your foliages, it's best to put the low lights in after you've placed all of the highlight colors in. This is going to help so that you can process your foils for about 25 minutes after you're done, and it stops your low lights from becoming oversaturated. So that is one of my number 1 tips. Tip number 2 is when I am doing a low lights, I don't like to paint the same exact formula from roots to ends. I do 7 on the regrowth right in that area, and then I will place clear. I placed clear in another bowl, and I painted the clear in the second bowl and painted that down to sort of stretch out the 7 so it's not as saturated on the ends, so you're getting a brighter ends result.
So tip number 3 is that, so I am doing the low lights every 2 foils, and I'm basically picking up that zigzag pattern and picking that up and putting that in the low light. So that's what I'm working with in these sections, is those weavy. You can see how chunky those are. Those are those zigzag weave patterns, and I'm picking those up and putting them into the foil. And I'm also using a second foil to extend it, so I'm not trying to swirl too much. Remember what I was saying about if you put too much product in one foil, it's just not going to saturate properly. So you really do need extra long foils when you're working with long hair, but I don't have those on hand, so I just extend them by adding another foil at the bottom with my foil board. Number 4 is a technique that I picked up about a year ago.
And I loved it. The girl who did it I thought was just pure genius, but she took her hair, she back combed it to give that erratic diffusion, or the random diffusion is what I want to say. So you can see I backcomb that section, and then I'm using the Vibrance, and I love the consistency of the Vibrance because it just gets right through to the hair and saturates it. And on the end, I'm going to backcomb, and I'm going to pop out those pieces and make them brighter, just adding a little more emphasis in that area, but still keeping some depth. So it's just really a fun little technique, and it adds a nice emphasis and pop without overdoing it. So now I'm just going to be placing some Endlights with 7 volume on the ends to just pop out some brighter pieces around the foliage. What I mean by Endlights is I'm going to be taking the end pieces and back combing them right here, and then placing a little bit of 7 volume, just enough to kind of pop it up to the next level. You don't have to leave it on too long because these ends are already blonde, and that's why I'm kind of waiting to the end to do this. If her hair was darker, I probably would have gotten these around her face sooner, but I really didn't want to over process her. So Vibrance's processing time is about 25 minutes, and so that's about as long as I left the low lights on for. If you stick around to the end of the video, I have another crazy client story, so I hope you guys like those.
Can you do me a favor? Smash the like button if you are finding this content to be helpful. It's a good way to help a girl out.
This is my new favorite technique, and I love this because it helps to ensure that you get a pretty bright, consistent blonde.
A lot of times the blondes at the top of the scalp where the hair is not fully keratinized can be pretty bright, and then the ends are not quite as bright. So by using the lightener and scrubbing that lightener off the root and kind of pulling it down to the bottom of the hair, as I'm doing right here, that really helps to pop out the ends and make them brighter without having to use any more product. And it also is very gentle because the hair has already been developed by that lightener. It's already been on the head for over an hour. So it's not, the peroxide is not really working anymore. It's just the lightener by itself. And it's going to be extremely gentle, and it's going to brighten those ends up without having to use any more product and without causing really that much damage.
Is my tip number 4.
I really do think if you want your cleanest, crispest blonde, you should clarify the hair and remove any residual buildup on the hair.
That is my tip number 5. I think my favorite tip is the one where you pop the lightener and you pull that all the way down to the ends. It really does help to change the overall appearance of the foliage, and it is my favorite tip out of all of these.
This is just the beginning series of foliage. I want to go more in depth in time, but I figure if I break it down, I can get more information in and give you guys more value. So I hope you stick around, and see you in the next video. So let's talk about spilling some tea. A few years ago, this is another sort of crazy client story. So a couple years ago, I was working at a salon, and I had a girlfriend who got sick all of a sudden. And she called out, and I had just started back on the floor. I had taken a couple years off to have some kids, so I was finally back to work, and I didn't have a book. So my girlfriend, like I said, she was sick, and she was like, you know, hey, can you take on this girl Gretchen? Now, Gretchen's not her real name, but I'm not going to tell you what her real name is. So Gretchen comes in, and Gretchen is like one of these, she was a very beautiful woman when she was younger, you could tell, and she was still a very pretty woman, like very pretty. But she was more mature. I would say she was in her 50s, but she still had it going on, but she wasn't at her prime anymore, and I think that was something that was painfully obvious to her. But she wasn't really pretty on the inside, if you know what I mean. Like, her personality was really hard and difficult. And I had to do her foils, and I toned her and all that stuff, right? And I'm blow drying her, and she's kind of like bouncing. So I'm blow drying her, and she's like doing weird stuff while I'm blow drying her. And so then, like, I'm blow drying, and I don't even know how I did it, but I hit her in the head with my blow dryer. And she's like, ow! And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Gretchen. I'm really sorry. And Gretchen did not look very impressed with me. I'm telling you, she was not okay. And I'm not a client stealer, so I didn't want this situation to turn into Gretchen switching over to me. So I guess subconsciously I really wanted to make sure she didn't switch over to me. So I'm blow drying her, and I hit her in the head again. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I haven't hit anybody in the head with a blow dryer ever, and I happened to hit this chick twice. So I'm thinking, oh great, I can't wait to hear what Gretchen has to tell my girl Amy. So I call up Amy like later on when she's starting to, like later on in that week, and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm really sorry, but like I was blow drying like Gretchen's hair. I hit her in the head twice with the blow dryer. And Amy says to me, "Oh, don't you worry about it. I wish I could hit her in the head with the blow dryer. I can't stand that woman." And then I found out that my other girlfriend, she was a bartender, and she's like, "You hit her in the head twice?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, I am so glad." She threw a drink at me. So I guess in some sort of way, what goes around comes around. And that's my story for today.